To the book of Ezekiel, chapter 7, beginning at verse 1, and it reads, Moreover, the word of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua came unto me, saying, Also, thou son of man, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, power unto the land of Israel. The end is come upon the four corners of the land. Now is the end come upon thee, and I will send mine anger upon thee, and will judge thee according to thy ways, and will recompense upon thee all thine abominations. And my eye shall not spare thee, neither will I have pity, but I will recompense thy ways upon thee, and thine abomination shall be in the midst of thee, and ye shall know that I am the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, power and evil, and only evil behold is come. I want to start off by giving all praise, all honor, and all glory to God, loyal, La Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua Ba'ashem. I say double honors to my apostles, the elders of the great millstone, teaching to rule well. Peace and salutations to the Akim across the four corners of the earth, pushing the truth with faith and with sincerity, as well as risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than ever. Shalom to the Akim and the Akwath. Shalom to the Akim and the Akwath out there listening and learning. Lord willingly, this is edified. Shalom to the Israelite foreigners scattered abroad in the land of other nations, appearing like the other nations, but whom subscribe to this truth. To you I say Shalom. It's your brother Yahweh, part of the GMS Cleveland Church, a fellow servant, coming at you with another lesson through the Spirit and through the power of Yahweh Shema Shai. This lesson is in regards to this article, which you see before you, in regards to the inflation, which is one of the ways, or one of the means that our Heavenly Father, whose true name in the Hebrew is Yahweh, Yahweh meaning He is or He exists, Hashem meaning in the name, Yahweh Shai meaning He saves or He's the deliverer. The true names of who people ignorantly call God and Jesus Christ in the Paleo Hebrew. That inflation is one of the ways the Most High is going to use to basically recompense Jake. A lot of these Babylonians are going to suffer it. The heathen, Esau, Edom. But majority of this is going to affect 2/3. We talk about the day of Jacob's trouble, mentioned in the book of mentioned in the book of Jeremiah chapter 30, which talks about it was a time like never before, and with all the suffering that Jacob has done, this time will basically be beyond all of those. Well, one of the ways the Lord is going to visit Jacob in Babylon is through this inflation, and that's what that evil is. Evil is a compound word. Eve meaning time, ill meaning bad. So that's going to be part of the bad times that are approaching, because, you got crime becoming rampant. You got all these different things, but, people not being able to buy what they need to sustain themselves is going to be one of the reasons why crime is going to increase. Book of 2nd Ezra 15 goes into that. I'm going to bring out a little bit of this article. A few precepts popped into my spirit when I read the title of this. So, Lord willingly, this is an edifying lesson. Salakia, so the article reads, this is amount of fortune. Inflation catches up with shoppers. Convenience stores are known as purveyors of slushies, cigarettes, and day-old roller hot dogs. They're less known for being inexpensive retail stalwarts during inflation, when their low price but high margin assortments offer shoppers a haven from soaring prices and provide brands as an oasis of steady consumer demand. However, the industry reached a tipping point in the recent months when shoppers cut back on purchases at one of the last bastions of affordability. By the end of 2022, consumers purchased 10.3% fewer items each time they visited the convenience store, while dollar sales declined a marginal 0.3%, indicating that the same budget now buys far fewer products. And because of the fact of what? The inflation, and then people aren't spending. The spending habits ain't the same as they once was. When money is flowing, then people tend to shop and go out and splurge and all these different things. But when money is the resource of money is harder to come by, people tend to be more careful with the money. And this is all scriptural. On on one hand, through a spiritual, through a carnal eye, you would look at it like, well, damn, Esau, Edom is doing this, Esau, Edom is doing that. This devil's calculated and cunning and all this, but which to a degree is true. The Most High created him to be a specific kind of way. That's why the scriptures talk about him being a cunning hunter. He traps men. It talks about how and look at how the system is. You got a system that basically will punish you for the things that they brought into the system. Drugs don't get over here because Jake got a boat or a plane. Drugs get over here because Esau brings them over here. This devil is the biggest drug dealer. This devil is the biggest thug. This devil is the biggest criminal, crook, gangster, thug. All that. But he's quick to flip it around, and that's part of his deception. Again, he'll bring this here, and then he'll make money off of it, but also make money off of, he like the he's like both. You get what I'm saying? Like, because on one end he's the problem, and then he'll bring, just like he's creating a problem, which he's gonna bring in his own brand of solution to put him on top. You know what I mean? Like, but it's lucky for the digression, because ultimately all go back to it ultimately all goes back to the inflation, which the scriptures speak on. It's the book of Habakkuk. Well, no, the book of Revelations, chapter 6, and the point is verse 6, and it reads, "And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." So, when you go into this word penny, the word there is denarius, 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 or 10 asses, pennis, penny, pennis. So when you go into the etymology and understand, a denarius was a day's wage for a Roman soldier. So when it says a measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny, so a measure of wheat basically breaking down to a day's wage. The inflation will get so out of control that a day's wage, it will take a day's wage to basically buy bread, which is not what's the word, far-fetched, because when you go into the Wine Republic, and in Germany and with Hitler and all that, when basically the money failed, then it was talking about, it took a wheelbarrow of money to buy a loaf of bread, and there's no new thing under the sun. The devils know that this is possible, and they understand the power of food based on the scriptures. And you go into the book of Genesis chapter 47. I think it's in 42 when it first makes mention of it. But Genesis chapter 47 verse 14, it says, "And when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth." It's funny because I never paid attention to it. I'm speaking about the money buying bread, and then they like, give us bread. Now, bread can symbolize, you know, it could be food. Some brothers, well, not brothers, some, because you got fads and whatnot, like they'll label bread money, but when you take time to think about it, the money fell if the bread fell, but will give us bread. But the point is, bread could be any kind of food, but more, is bread. Bread is something that simply, it's a simple food, but it can actually save your life. You know what I mean? You see them old movies where they give you bread and water. You know, but verse 16, and Joseph said, "Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail." And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year.
When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, We will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. My Lord also had our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, there is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase that you shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and four parts shall be your own for the seed of the field, for the food, for them of your household, and for the food of your little ones. So the point is, I should have been stopped. Point is, when times got hard, when the famine came, which you're hearing about food shortages, these food processing plants burning down and whatnot. And the thing is this, the land is already corrupted to a degree. We don't farm our own land. We don't slaughter our own animals, so we rely on Esau to give us our food. But a lot of these food processing plants basically burnt down mysteriously, and all these different things. So it's a manufactured famine coming. Um, Esau, I mean Pharaoh, which basically was the ruler of Egypt. He had appointed Joseph to be like the viceroy, the second in command. So Joseph had power. He went from a lowly man to a powerful man, and that was how the Most High chose to, deliver and save Israel at that time. But you know, Joseph understood the power of food, and this devil, because he searches out all things, you know, he took it. When you go into, not to digress, but when you go into like a lot of things in this world, are the scriptures are incorporated in. When you go into like a multitude of things, like when you go into like Star Wars, the whole concept of that is based on, Solomon. You know, the two different paths, righteousness or wickedness, the dark side or the light, or the force, you know what I mean? Which is witchcraft involved in that, and not to digress or confuse anybody, but like with Superman, where do you think that get that concept from? A child is sent away from his home as a baby, and then raised by a family, when you really look back at it, that's they took that from the scripture. But my point being, these devils utilize the scriptures in a lot of ways, and they understand the power of a famine. So this is the way the Most High is going to use, because those people were willing to put themselves in subjection to live, and that's what this devil's banking on this time. That's why he's eliminating the food, to have you in servitude. Because if you control a nation's food, you control that nation. If you control the food and the money, yeah, you you ultimately have control. You know, I got one more, because when you go into the book of Habakkuk, well, I'm gonna bring out a little bit more of the article if there's any more. It says, if we see people buying fewer items overall to save money, that means they're pulling back on impulse purchases, says Emily McQueen, food and beverage analyst at market research company Morning Consult. And I've been saying that, at the end of the day, why do you think you got these, fast food chains and businesses closing? I may mention this a few different times, but, it's funny how the Lord did it, because during the pandemic, you had these fast food joints basically kept this shit going for the last, what, 2, 3 years. But now, because times are getting tougher, it's not stimulus money out there like that. They literally, you got a lot of companies closing. I just did a video about, you had within like a month, like 56 Burger Kings closing throughout the country. A lot in Detroit, but or Michigan, but the other half of that is throughout the country, and it's these different franchisees that it's not just a person own one Burger King. It's like they own 20 or 15. So those are stores that's performing low, just like with Walmart. The elder Malcolm from Chicago did a video about that. You had 8 Walmarts in Chicago. He was like, and they closed 4 of them, the ones that weren't performing that well, because people don't have the money to just trick off or dick off. They're basically spending their money on the necessities. You look at the income tax. A lot of people didn't get to just go on trips and do. They had to spend that money on overdue or past due bills, and they had to or to live, because everything is still high. The government stopped with the emergency food stamps for the pandemic and the stimulus, but inflation hasn't went anywhere. Inflation is still here. If we see people, I read that that's a potential catastrophe for industry built on small impulse purchases made across thousands of stores, and that's what a convenience store is. Well, a lot of stores utilize um, impulse buying. When you go into, like, I took this class and they was talking about, you got I forgot, it's like consumer psych consumer psychology or something like that. Like the way a grocery store is even set up is all strategic. From the colors to why they have candy right at the aisle when you're checking out, because they banking on the fact that you might have children with you, and that's why they always keep the candy right there. They keep all the junk shit right by the register. Why do you think that is? Because that's an impulse buy. You know, Says that's a potential catastrophe for an industry built on small impulse purchases made across thousands of stores. A candy bar here, a bag of chips there, is sold just because. Retailers now face the arduous task of convincing shoppers to place more items in their shopping cart, even though rising prices mean they can. Uh, Even though rising prices mean they can afford fewer of them, they only can afford fewer of them. So, and at the end of the day, that's about to lead to what? Because a person still got to eat, still got to take care of their family, so it's going to lead to crime. You know, because the government, and if you really had a spiritual eye or just some common sense, well, of course, spiritual eye, but common sense would tell you, like, literally, inflation went nowhere, but they stopped the emergency food stamps. So it's like they're setting you up for desperation, on for dependency. But it's not really them, and that was the point I was making earlier when I first started off. Like, a person to look at it carnally and think it's Esau Edom just doing this and doing all that, but ultimately it's Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. It tells you in the scriptures that the Most High directed the steps of man. So it's the Most High that put this in his devil spirit to literally try to enact a system that everybody be dependent on. But he also put it in the spirit of a select group of individuals, men, women, and children, that won't succumb to this, that are exempt from this. He put it in a select group, elite. I wanted to use that word, elite group, because the elect are the elite of the on the right hand side. That they're not going to bow down to this system to the point of on to death. The scriptures even tell you that in the book of Revelations. It says more items in the shopping cart, even though rising prices mean they can't afford fewer of them, by overhauling a proven decades old merchandising playbook and rejiggering their product assortment toward fresh food and private label items, which deliver higher margins while remaining affordable. So it says that sets up a showdown between retailers, hesitant to pass all costs to increase all cost increases to consumers and brands desperate to raise prices to protect profit margins. And that's the whole thing. America's built on capitalism and and greed. That's how you know this is Esau's land for real. Because it talks about how Esau is covetous, and America pushes that vibration of just basically get the money, just be the most money getting person. What I mean? That's witchcraft to the degree. Just like with these, you had certain products because of the inflation rise up and become more expensive, but at the same time, you have people, individuals, literally still buy it. That's why that's what's keeping it going. A lot of these products have witchcraft on them. When you look at the symbolism of some of these products, they got these ancient symbols and shit. That's not by coincidence. Look at Starbucks logo, these logos and shit like that. So, motherfuckers still need their morning coffee, even if it's $5 coffee. You know what I mean? For one coffee. They need a latte, need a $7 coffee. You know what I mean? Well, you could have make that shit, or or just go without. He's talking about certain cereals, certain brands of cereal. I bought my children generic. I don't really eat cereal. And the brother, like his cereal, and the brother went into that. Like, it's different. Like, that cereal is garbage. For real, for real. You might can get away with some generic cornflakes or whatnot without no kind of added sugars or nothing. But for the most part, a lot of that shit got metals in it and all that. They've showed videos on TikTok and YouTube where people take a magnet and the cereal move and shit. The fuck you got metal in cereal for? This man is truly the devil. But Salaki for the digression. Nonetheless, with the inflation, you had certain cereals that's $6 a box, and people still buying it. But for how much and longer? Again, you watching certain companies close down, and they have a time frame for this. They keep on predicting by the summertime, all hell. Basically, they said throughout the year, you're gonna have layoffs, but you're gonna basically during the summertime, they saying basically it's gonna be a little chaotic. Why do you think you got in New York? They're unleashing those robot dogs. This is a long article. The point has been made. I just want to make the point that inflation's kicked in, and basically they're trying to say these convenience stores is trying to scramble with ideas in order to get individuals or the consumer to continue shopping there, although at record high inflation. And again, that's a recipe for disaster on a consumer based economy. If nobody's spending money, there's a book of Habakkuk chapter 2, and it reads, I will stand upon my watch. Well, this is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 1, and it reads, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, which is the prophecy, and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that read of it. This is a prophecy that the money fell in. So the plainest way to make it known is to let the people know, like I did. This happened in the past, and it's going to happen again now. Because all things repeat themselves. There's no new thing under the sun, as the book of Ecclesiastes say. So and we watching the money fail now. Proof is in the pudding with the whole uh, SVB Bank, the Silicon Valley Bank, because you had that bank run, people withdrew their money, and what people fail to realize, because you're not seeing it, and you got these devils whispering a witchcraft, well, not whispering, speaking a witchcraft, talk about, oh, don't worry about the bank. I'm seeing all these analysts, don't worry about the banks, don't worry about the bank, don't worry about the banks. Yeah, still, it's funny. But the money fell in when the bank failed, right? And all our banks are interconnected. That's why you have the bigger banks absorbing the little banks.
the smaller banks. And they were talking about, like, basically, I looked at the article. It was talking about, I think that was yesterday. I didn't read it, but I glanced over it, and it was talking about how I think $1 billion basically exited out of the banking system because that made people sit up there and like question the financial system. Which again, money fell back in the day. I mean, you got the Great Depression for a reason. That's why people didn't put their money in the banks. They kept it in their mattresses and all kind of shit. This, ain't been too long ago. This ain't 300 years ago in George Washington times. These things are fairly recent. And then you still putting your heart and trust in Egypt. Verse 3, for the vision is yet for a point in time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie, though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come and will not tarry. So the vision again is the prophecy, and all prophecies are set up at a point in time, at the will of in the time when Yahweh Bashim Yahshua sees fit. It says, although it tarry, meaning it looked like, I remember like when Donald Trump basically made, all the federal workers work for free. And that was symbolic as well, you know what I mean? He made them work for free. And now I'm thinking of Genesis chapter 47, how they sold themselves, just feed us. So in order to keep their jobs, they work for free. And although that's, a lot of people didn't understand that was some shit you signed up for when you became a federal worker, it shows you how many people be so quick to literally join onto the system. Look at the whole jump shot. People literally took some shit they don't even know what it is. Don't even understand they probably suffering side effects from that shit. Motherfucker said, he made a statement. Who was that? Bill Gates of Hill say, we don't know any side effects. It'll take 2 years for side effects to be seen, and we have to wait 2 years. He said that shit. Then you see it 2 years later, all these people just suddenly falling out, and nobody questions. That's how dumbed down Americans are. Verse 4, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him. Whose soul? Esau Edom's. Because, his pride. His soul, it tells you in the scriptures, who can make straight what the Most High made crook. So, the Most High set Esau Edom up, who the self-proclaimed white man, which is not when you go in the word white, it's pure. It's supposed to be pure, or holy, you know what I mean? But this devil was not pure. Yeah, look at the abominable things this devil did. For one, I could just name one when he basically the buck breaking situation. Show you how much, and then you still got individuals going through that now. We watch Nick Cannon's art. These is the leader of your people that you follow that basically are under the thumb of this devil. They did it to Kanye. They did it to Kyrie. When and the people will look up to these individuals and consider them leaders. When these motherfuckers is really followers. They didn't do. I will give Kanye this. Kanye literally all his career has been outspoken. I remember when he made the statement about George Bush don't like black people, but Kanye has also got like a lot of demons on him. He fucked up. First and foremost, probably from dealing with that demonic bitch that he chose to have a child with. Well, he had a whole bunch of children with her. And it's funny, it's kind of a joke to see a man that's supposed to be worth $1 billion going through the problems and issues that I had to go through, and I ain't worth shit, except for maybe Laura Woodley in the eyes of Yahweh Bashim Yahshua. I kind of find that funny. That's how much of a joke this place is. This dude worth $1 billion, but he up there can't see his kid. He got to do all this outlandish shit, having little temper tantrums and outbursts, which would frustrate anybody, you know what I mean? Salaki for the digression. It says, verse 5, yea, also because he transgresseth wine, which wine going into his philosophies. This is the devil. He tells you that a man could be a woman and a woman could be a man. A child can be whatever sex they want to be. A child can't even have a drink until they 21. Right? You can't even have a drink till you're 21, but you could change your sex at
at 6, 8. This is how backwards this shit is. It tells you in the book of Isaiah for this devil turning of things upside down. Surely the turning of these things upside down shall be esteemed like the potter's clay. Roughly paraphrased. This devil got a lot to pay for. You know, the age of consent, I think, is what, 18? So you can't have sex until, you know, but yet still, though, you could change your gender at 7. Like, fuck out of here. He is a proud man going back into his pride, you know, his heart being lifted up. Neither keepeth at home who enlarges his desires hell, because he's covetous. He'll never be satisfied or sated. You know, this man is always going to be thirsty. He'll never have enough. You know, and that's why we need deliverance. That's why we need a savior. Because the Most High put this devil in rulership. And that's why the scriptures talk about basically if Yahweh Shah didn't come back, it won't be no flesh to be saved. This man's mindset is he wants to basically microchip, and he's trying to live forever because he has a cardinal blessing. So he's going to try to use technology to make himself like a RoboCop or some shit like that. I mean, I remember the elder Tazapot from Houston said this freaky ass, it's gonna be a freaky ass. If the devil had his way, he would make it a freaky ass cyborg society where everybody having orgies. They want to eliminate the whole idea of a man and a woman being in marriage and union. Do you know that? This man is truly the fucking devil. Salakia. Neither keepeth at home who enlarges his desires hell and is as deaf and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. And he's gathering all the nations based on what? His wine, the philosophies, you know, the ideas that he pushed. You know, he pushed that whole homosexuality in Taiwan. But Taiwan was once a province of China. So why you think China's and you know we at the end. Literally, China is talking about invading and taking back Taiwan just like Ukraine basically was invaded by Putin. So we at the end. Now, Taiwan and Ukraine are both allies of America. Verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb against him and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. And we seeing that woe now. Woe goes into destruction. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. So we was just going to this word clay at our study Sunday. And when you go into that word clay, it's abatya. And basically abatya, it'll say aptit in the on this app, but it's abatya. And basically it goes into weight of pledges or heavy debts. And the American dollar is a debt note. So the thick clay, you know, is this monetary system because the US dollar is a debt note. And that's how basically the whole world is basically up under this, you know, this devil, because the American dollar is the world reserve currency, which is losing its power though. But it's so strong, that's why we literally still are buying and living better than a lot of nations. But once all these nations refuse to use it, which you're seeing all this beginning right now, that's why you got all these different nations, the BRICS nations, and you know, they talking about coming up with their own currency. Once they stop using the dollar, this place, all those dollars that's around the world will come back to America. And that's when hyperinflation will kick in. So the money truly is failing. So Lucky, I didn't mean to make this that long. So with that, I'm gonna end the lesson. You know, right now, if any of this, you know, vibrates with your spirit, you know, more than likely, you know, if you're receiving it, you know, now is the time to seek salvation. You know what I mean? Because we are in the last days. You know, so it's time to repent, come back to the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, or you will be destroyed. And with that, I want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory to Kol Loyim, by Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, by Hashem Rachak, I want to say double honors to my apostles, the elders of the great millstone who teach and do rule well. Peace and salutations to the Akim across the four corners of the earth, pushing His truth with faith and with sincerity, as well as risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than ever. Shalom to the Akwath, as well as the Akim out there listening and learning. Lord, willingly this is edifying. Shalom to the Israelite foreigners scattered abroad in the land of other nations, appearing like the other nations, subscribing to this truth. To you, I say shalom. Till next time, I'm able to come with another lesson. Shalom, shalom. Mawaf lababah, shalom.